So, welcome everyone. I'm Alexander Mihalcea, and today we're joined by Tim Lane, founder of Park Lane Recruitment. Thank you for being here.
I'm very pleased to be here and thank you for asking me.
Before we dive in, could you give us a quick overview of what Park Lane Recruitment does?
Absolutely. Park Lane is a IT recruitment business that's been in existence nearly 10 years now, and we supply and find the best candidates for our clients across the UK, Europe, and the USA.
Okay, that's fascinating. And what inspired you to create Park Lane Recruitment? Was there a specific moment or experience that sparked this journey?
I think having my own business was something that I'd always wanted to do from a very young age, but also I got married at a very young age and I ended up in a career, recruitment career, eventually running companies for other people. And you kind of put those dreams of having your own business on hold whilst you have a family.
Right.
And 10 years ago, nearly, the kids are all grown up, and I still had that desire to do that, to run my own business. And so the opportunity kind of presented itself. I left a previous company at that time. My wife is my finance director and co-owner of the business, and we decided, okay, now's the time to do it. So that's why.
That's great. That's very interesting. And what was your background before starting this venture?
Originally, I started my career working in IT. So I'm one of the few IT recruitment experts that actually came from an IT background. I worked as a computer operator in the days of mainframe computer systems, and then I was inspired to move into recruitment because I spent a year working in Amsterdam as a contractor, and that taught me about recruitment. And I thought that's something I think I could do.
Awesome, awesome. And let's go back to when you first started. What major challenges or gaps did you see in the market that made you think this needs to be solved?
Going back to when I started, mid 80s, it was a very different time. Obviously, way before the internet, way before email, way before PCs, powerful mobile phone systems, and so forth. So, in those days, we had a telephone and we had a book of companies that had computers. And we rang up and spoke to the IT directors and asked them if they were looking for staff. And they were often, and they didn't really know what they were looking for. So the gap was educating companies that were hiring as to what actually they were looking for the need that they had. And it was working with candidates who at that time were still typing up a CV and then posting CVs to us and so forth. So it was educating both sides of the picture, if you like, as to how the candidate could present themselves in the best way and how clients could select and interview for this new thing called IT that they didn't really know about either.
Okay, okay. That's really interesting, I guess. And could you elaborate on why the existing solutions weren't meeting these needs?
I think because prior to around that time that I became involved in recruitment companies that existed were very generalist providers. There wasn't the focus on a particular niche that we are used to these days. And they were also very parochial, very dealing with a local area, a few local clients that they would be physically visiting and sitting down with and looking at their needs, but their needs were across the warehouse, across the office staff, across the finance staff, generalist recruiting. So there was a gap in this new burgeoning area of IT for a recruitment business that specialized in that area and was able to really help steer companies into this new world of IT. They were getting computers for the first time. They didn't really know much about them themselves. They just knew they needed somebody who could come and join them and really help them in this world. And that's where somebody from an IT background, then working in recruitment, was able to provide that sort of knowledge and service that didn't really exist otherwise.
Okay, okay, okay. Makes sense. And what was the breaking point that made you decide to tackle this problem?
I think I saw the opportunity. I've always been driven by being successful and also driven by kind of sociology. I've always been a people person. I've loved working with people and helping them and helping guide them on their career
Yeah,
journeys. And so tackling the problem for me was a fantastic way of encompassing all of those things. There was a problem, companies needed people, people needed jobs. There was a gap in the knowledge on both sides, and that's where I could step in and provide that knowledge and bring those two sides together and obviously get paid for doing so. So the best of all worlds.
yeah, yeah. Great. So I have a curiosity about this. What are the most critical pieces of information you constantly see missing from tech candidate CVs?
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you raise there. That there's a huge discrepancy in the quality of CVs that we receive, even to this day. You could, in a way, forgive it and understand it. In the early days, people weren't really used to doing CVs way back in the 80s. You would have thought by 2025 that everybody would know exactly how to do a CV and what was needed, but clearly not. It differs from country to country for sure in terms of the kind of design and layout of a CV. European CVs tend to always have a photograph on, for example,
Right.
whereas US, Middle East, UK tend not to. But missing information, core information, the amount of people that don't even put contact information on their CV is mind blowing. They just assume because they're putting their CV on a job board that that job board has a profile attached to it. But what they
Okay.
don't consider is when that CV is downloaded from that job board and it goes into some CRM system or it's printed out and it sits on a recruiter's desk, if it doesn't have contact information on it, how are they going to get hold of that candidate? They may look at that CV and think, right, this guy looks perfect for this role.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, like, I can't contact him. There's no phone number. There's no email. So that's one of the most core, basic things that people forget to put on is how can we get hold of you? And then, secondly to that, um, it's location information. The amount of CVs that we get that have no indication whatsoever of where that person is physically located is incredible. They put where they're working, but they don't put the town of where that company is located. They don't put their hometown, their home city on there. They don't put any reference to where they might like to work and so forth. And the vast majority of companies that we hire for, and this is the same globally, the vast majority of companies want people who live relatively near to where the company is. Yes, there are fully remote roles. Of course, there are these days, but they're still the minority compared to all roles that are out there. The vast majority of companies want people, even if they're not on site fully, they want them to live relatively locally so they can be coming into the office on a regular basis for teamwork and so on. If you therefore don't put on your CV where you are,
Yeah.
the recruiter is then left with a problem. This person might look as though they've got the skills and the experience, but I don't know where they are. They could be around the corner from the client, or they could be the other side of the world. And now it leaves me as a recruiter another job to do. I've got to try and get hold of this person just to ask them a simple question of where are you?
Yeah.
And that wastes time. And recruiters are busy. We are handling a number of clients at a time. We're handling dozens of candidates at a time, many roles that we're working on. And for a recruiter to be good and effective, he needs to be using his time carefully and sensibly and speaking to candidates who are presenting themselves in the best way as easily as possible. So having location, having contact information, These are basic, vital things that should be on your CV, and if they're not, get them on there now.
Yeah, so basically the basic information are missing from there.
Absolutely, leaving aside their experience, where they work,
Yeah,
and their job. I can talk more about stuff that's missing from that
yeah,
aspect in
yeah,
a moment. But the core is get that basic information on your CV, front and present, top of the page. This is who I am. This is where I am, and this is how you get hold of me.
yeah.
That's the core stuff that needs to be there.
That's insane. Yeah,
And then there's a lot more information about what you should and shouldn't put in the description of the roles that you've done. And I can
I
go
see.
into that if you'd like, if we've time. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Why not?
Okay. You often find that people will put um, the name of the company that they are currently working for first, and then reverse order, which is great. That's what we prefer. But alongside that, you need to put the dates of where you've worked at that company. Okay, so if you're still there, what was the date that you started at this company? And don't just put a year, put the month as well. We often see a year to year sort of thing put on there. A year is 12 months. It can be a big difference. It can be different
Right.
to a year or a few days. So put the month in there at least. Because the length of service at a company is very important. Very, very important. Companies are only interested in people who have worked for a decent period of time at each of their employers. Companies hate people who've done 6 months here, 2 months there, 8 months
Yeah,
there, 1 year there. They hate that unless that person is a contractor. And that's fine because that's what goes with being a contractor. But if we're talking permanent positions and they're seeing lots of chops and changes, that's not going to attract somebody to that person. So you need to have it clear and be able to highlight the fact that, yes, I've worked for this company for 3 years. At this company, I worked for 5 years. This company, I've worked for 2.5 years. So you've got decent length of service clearly shown. Need to show where that company is as well, because that's important. Have you been working on site in that particular location for that company? Or were you working remotely? Was the company based in London and you live in Budapest? You need to make that clear so people understand quickly and easily, okay, what type of work have you been doing? Has it been fully remote? Has it been partially? Has it been fully on site? Um, when they talk then about the kind of work that they've done, we often see things like, I managed a team of developers. Great. Okay, so you've got some man management experience. Brilliant. People often want to see that. But don't just say, I managed a team. Okay, a team can be classed as 3 people. A team could be 300 people. Put some context around it. Let's have some numbers, some facts, some statistics. Let's see the size and scope of the man management that you've been doing.
yeah. More specific.
Absolutely. If you've managed a project, I managed a large project to upgrade software for our company's ERP system. Great. Okay. Now give us some detail, put some meat on the bones around that.
Hmm.
What size of project was this? What was the value? What was the spend that the company spent on this new software that you were responsible for managing the project for? What difference did it make to the company that this project went well? Did it save the company millions of pounds? Did it help them sell more product because they became more efficient? And if so, how much did the product sales go up after this project was successfully implemented? What was your responsibility in this project? Were you in it from the beginning, from the initial specifications and so on, or did you come in at some point and manage it from that point forwards? This sort of detail and clarity is hugely important, and it makes the difference between a recruiter and or a hiring manager looking at that CV and saying, yeah, this person is the one I need to talk to. He's been clear, he or she has been clear about what they've done, the size and the scope of it. I get a picture, and I think that person fits with what I'm looking for. And it saves a lot of wasted time and effort. Takes you a little bit more effort in the beginning to obviously put that detail into the CV, but it saves you and the company time and the recruiter time after the event, because conversations that then happen are much more likely to be successful because they know they're talking to the right type of person.
Right.
If it's vague, then they're going to think, oh, okay, I better speak to him because he kind of mentions projects and software and so forth. And then as soon as you get on the call and the client goes, so tell me about the size of this project. And oh, it was for three people. We're a very small business and we just put this new software in for this system.
Hmm.
That's great, but it's not suitable for what I need because I've got 3,000 people and I've got 30 sites that
Yeah.
I need this project manager for. You haven't got that kind of experience. I need somebody who does. Thank you for your time, but I'm going to stop it there because it's
Hmm.
not right. So it's wasted the candidate's time, it's wasted the client's time, whereas that wouldn't have happened if the detail was in the CV.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how has poor CV quality directly affected placement rates in your experience?
Poor quality of CVs affects massively because what you get is, at best, a recruiter, if it's coming to a recruiter first, the recruiter has to quickly kind of sift through applications, and some jobs get a lot of applications, particularly in this day and age where it's so easy for people to apply. They're on the phone, they see a title of a job, and they think, yeah, that's me, click, send. They haven't read the spec. They haven't read the careful stuff that the recruiter has carefully put into the advert to say, must have this, must have that, must have this. They just look at the title and think, oh, yeah, that's me, send. So the recruiter has to do a lot of sifting of a lot of CVs, very often of great people with great experience, but completely irrelevant for this specific position. So what they're doing, what we have to do in our jobs to be good for our clients pay us to do that.
Right.
They pay us to find the best people for them. From 100 people, they want us to give them, here's the top five. And so we can't speak to 100 people to find out who the top five is. We have to see that from the paper that you send us. So that CV has got to be good. It's got to stand out. It's got to have the information that we need, because if not, worst case scenario, you'll just be completely binned because we'll have to assume that you've not got the experience if it doesn't say it. At best, if it doesn't say it, but we like the companies you've worked for and we think, okay,
Hmm.
maybe he might be right, you'll go on a maybe pile. Okay.
Hmm.
So you've not gone into the definite no, but you might get into a maybe pile. But what we're going to be focusing on is those where we're going, yeah, this person I need to speak to. This is the guy, this is the girl. Right, I'm on the phone to this person now. And you might have two or three of those that are definite yeses because their CVs are really good. You might not get back to the maybe pile. You might not need to because you've got your top five.
Yeah.
You've sent them to the client. The client's like, happy days. Arrange interviews for these five. Maybe pile's still sitting over here. It's not got to yet. I don't need to. If those five all fall by the wayside for one reason or another, they don't end up with the job, then the client's going to go, okay, that didn't work. Who else have you got for me? So at that point, I'm going to be going back to my maybe pile and go, all right,
Yeah.
okay, let's have a look here. So you, as a candidate applying for a position, has got to make sure that your CV is in the definite yes pile,
Hmm.
not falling into the maybe or falling into the definite no. So that's the difference. A good CV.
Right.
or a poor
Interesting.
CV.
So, walk us through how Park Lane Recruitment addresses these challenges. What makes your approach unique?
I hesitate to say unique, to be honest, because, you know, we're in a recruitment world where it's hugely competitive. There's a lot of recruitment businesses, particularly in the UK. We've got 27,000 or 30,000 recruitment businesses in the UK alone. We're this tiny little island, and yet we're the most competitive recruitment market in the world, bar none. So it's very difficult to say, oh, yes, I'm unique. But there's a massive difference in what we do and what others do. And the difference is that because we are a relatively small business, we're owner led. Everything we do matters to us. Everything we do is critical to our success. Big companies, big recruitment players, it's kind of counterintuitive, if you like, because you think, well, I'll go with the biggest recruitment company in the world because that's bound to be the best. And it's not necessarily so. Because if you think about it, if somebody owns a recruitment business and it's a small recruitment business, they're much more invested in the outcomes than somebody that's a recruiter employed by one of the very big companies
Yeah.
because they're just doing their own thing in their little part of this huge company. Not to say that they're not good in of themselves, but the business as a whole is looking at big pictures, big things, big outcomes. For us as a smaller recruitment business, every outcome is critical. Every interview is vitally important. Every candidate that comes through the door is looked at carefully because they might be the right candidate that we need for this client.
Hmm.
And so, therefore, I think what makes us different, not unique, but different, is that we spend time and we care about outcomes both for our clients and for our candidates. I've got candidates that I've worked with multiple times over 30 years. And when I first started working with them, they were a fairly junior software
Yeah.
developer, let's say. Now they're head of programming, head of IT. They're in hiring positions. They're clients now, and we've been together for many years. And that doesn't happen unless you show and prove the care that you have in outcomes. And for
Yeah.
me, the client and the candidate are both equally important. And for some
Right.
people, clients are the most important thing. I'll do everything and I'll bend over backwards and I'll make the client feel fantastic. And I just need a load of CVs and I'll just shovel some CVs
Hmm.
through and hopefully one of them will be right. For me, that's not the way at all. For me, it's not a CV, it's a person. This is a person's life. This is their career.
Right.
And they're entrusting that to me to help find them the right position going forward so that they can then continue their career successfully to the next level. And it's so therefore it's important for me to make sure that I've got the right candidate for the right client because I'm looking at a long-term relationship with both parties.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for a quick fix. I don't want to put someone in a job and then them bringing me back in 3 months going, I hate it, get me out of here. That's a failure to me, you know. I want somebody to ring me up in a year and 2 years and 3 years and say, I love it here. This was the best move I ever made. I'm so thankful that you found this for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, when you talk to potential clients, what's the biggest misconception they typically have about what you do?
That's a good one. Often, I think people think that recruitment is really easy. A lot of people make that mistake, both candidates and clients, to be fair. There's this misconception that all we do is pass paper around. You know, we get some paper in and we send it somewhere else. And I'm sure there's an element of that goes on in the industry. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there is. But if you work with the right recruiter, then you're going to get the service that you need and you deserve. The misconceptions is that we don't really care, that recruiters are only interested in the money that we make. And whilst, yes, we do enjoy making money, everybody works to be paid, and so making the money side of it is important, but it's not the be all and end all. Job satisfaction doesn't come from the paycheck. Job satisfaction comes from doing something that you love, that you're passionate about, that you are seeing successful long-term outcomes from, and being able to kind of help shape somebody's life because you found them a fantastic position is the most rewarding feeling on earth. It really is. The most painful feeling on earth is where you think you found somebody the right role and they turn it down and they stay where they were and then regret it. And that's the
Yeah.
worst feeling in the world. And that happens, unfortunately, fairly frequently. People are tempted by a quick pay offer to stay where they are. Always regret it. So the misconception is that recruitment is easy, that we charge a lot of money for doing a very easy job. The reality is it isn't easy at all. It's hard work, and we have to put in a huge amount of effort to make sure that we're matching the right person with the right role.
Right. So, could you share a specific success story of a client who saw significant results using your solution?
Certainly, the company called Paperfly that were established down near London, a Norwegian-owned company, and I was lucky enough to be introduced to them as a potential recruiter for them back in 2020, somewhere around that time. Interesting times, if you remember. A certain little thing called COVID was happening. And they were looking to expand, which was fantastic. A really good software marketing business. And they were very wise. They were looking to engage with one recruiter, which makes a very pleasant change because a lot of companies think, oh, the more recruiters we work with, the more choices of candidates that we will get. And often it doesn't work that way round. It's a bit like if you're selling your house. If you're selling your house, you choose an estate agent that you're going to work with and you trust them to sell your house. You don't go to 10 different estate agents and say, right, all of you try and sell my house. In recruitment, unfortunately, companies often do that sort of approach and then wonder why it doesn't really work. Paperfly had at least the sense to go, yeah, we just want to work with one recruiter who's going to do us a good job. We need to expand our sales team. We need to expand our dev team. We need to expand our IT infrastructure team. We have 2 or 3 senior management positions as well. So we need somebody who can do all of that for us. We don't
Yeah.
want to work with dozens of people. So I was called down, went down, did a presentation, talked about me, what I did, how I did it, and thankfully got the gig. And then over that year, I placed 12 people with them and completely changed the course of that company.
Hmm.
It came from being a small offshoot from a Norwegian-owned company to being a major part of the group, and ultimately was successfully sold off and is a thriving business to this day. And the directors that I was working with at that time are still clients of mine now in different places that they all are. And at least half of the people I placed there are now in senior management positions as well. And I'm still working with them. So that's a complete success story from start to finish.
Yeah, yeah. Great story, honestly. So, looking at the broader industry, what key trends are you seeing emerge?
In recruitment, it's forever changing. Recruitment industry has always been an early adopter of technology, and of course, we're seeing that hugely now with AI. Of course, that is the big change that's happened in very recent times. But recruitment has always been very good at adopting technology, as I say, back from when email was invented, the PC came along, the fax machine was invented. That was mind blowing technology back in the day, the fax machine. You didn't have to post CVs to a client. or drive them down to the client to go, there's a CV, Mr. Client. You could put it into this machine and it would appear out of their machine at the other end. And recruiters have always embraced new technologies and looked at ways that that can help the process. And over the years, it's often been said, oh, this invention, that invention is going to be the death of recruiters. They're not going to be needed anymore. Companies can just do the hiring themselves and so on. I remember when job boards first came out, when they Monster and so on were the very first job boards, and everyone went, well, that's it. That's the end of recruitment because a candidate just puts his CV on this job board. The client just goes in that job board and goes, yes, I'll have that one, please.
Yeah.
But no, recruiters, we like job boards. We can put our adverts on there and attract people to apply to our jobs. We can go into their CV database on the job board and we can, using certain terms, we can find a candidate that we want to work with. So we embraced it. And it's the same now with AI. We are
Right.
seeing that it is being utilized by recruitment businesses in a big way to help streamline, to help speed up processes, to help remove a lot of the administrative tasks. We have to be very careful in our industry that we are storing and recording data on individuals very carefully. And AI tools help us to do that. AI helps us to record interviews that we have with candidates and properly transcribe what was said in those interviews.
Hmm.
Helps us to highlight some of the key skills and experience that somebody's got that maybe we overlooked. So what we're seeing is that AI is a good thing used in the right way by people who are using it for the right reasons. And it's the same as
Right.
all technology that's come along previously. It will change and shape the industry massively, but it will be embraced by recruiters and it will help us to perform our job even better and give us more time that we can spend talking to our clients and talking to our candidates rather than taking time doing more
Yeah.
administrative tasks.
So, how are these trends affecting how businesses operate in your space?
They're affecting them in the way that um, choice of solutions is a big thing at the moment. Rec tech, as it's known, is a big area. Lots of companies are like, there's all these great tools around now. Which do we use? And if you're not careful, you can spend a lot of time looking at a lot of tools
Right.
and not doing anything because you're busy. I've got a demo of this one. Oh, I've got a demo of that one. Oh, this looks new and shiny. Let me have a look at that one. Um, and so it's affecting businesses in as much as they are having to make decisions. Okay, we know we want to embrace this new technology, but which bits of it do we embrace? What works for us and our company? And so I think the effect is that some businesses have got themselves rather bogged down by either not making a decision, and so they keep putting off, well, we might go for that, we might go for that, I'm not quite sure yet, thinking about it a bit longer. So they don't actually do anything. Or the converse of that, where they've gone for everything and suddenly they've got all these tools that nobody really knows how to use properly, and they've got recruiters working for them in their business that don't really know and haven't been properly trained. Okay, this is what you do. You use this tool in this circumstance, you use this tool in this circumstance. These are all the things it can do for you, and these are things it can't do for you. So training is a big element of it. I think a lot of companies make the mistake of saying, this is the new shiny thing, we will buy that, let's install it. Okay, team, you've
Right.
got access to whatever it might be, and then expecting magic to happen. And it doesn't. As there used to be an old saying in my early computer days called garbage in, garbage out.
Hmm. Yeah.
that applied to a computer system. And it still applies to today, even if it's the very latest AI system that you're using. If you don't use it properly, if you don't set it up properly, and you don't put the right information in properly, then rubbish will come out. And I think a lot of the AI providers have got to be careful that they don't get caught up by that, where companies go, your system's rubbish. We used it and it was rubbish. And the reason it was rubbish was because they put rubbish in, or often they don't take the time to set it up properly in the first place. So I think one of the big effects of technology is that you've got to realize that it takes time initially to get it set up right, and it's worth doing because then it will be brilliant for your business. If you don't take that time and set it up right in the early stages, it will be a waste of money, a waste of time, and you will feel that it's actually taking you backwards rather than forwards.
Right. So I have a curiosity. How do you predict will be the biggest changes in CV requirements over the next, let's say, 2, 3 years?
Changes in CV requirements. Okay. Um, it's an interesting one because some while ago there was a move towards kind of automating CVs, making them some kind of dynamic product, if you like, and that the CV would just be online. It wouldn't be a Word document or a PDF document. It would be a living document that people accessed. And that just really hasn't taken off at all. You know, I've seen various things come and go over the last few years that are kind of along those lines. None of them has succeeded, not one. And again, LinkedIn was
Right.
effectively going to be that, you know, that your LinkedIn profile would be your CV. There wouldn't need to be a CV as well. That's not the case at all. You know, I've been on LinkedIn. I was one of the first million people on LinkedIn back in 2004. And now there's a billion people on there and so on. And so LinkedIn profile is now requested all the time in addition to the CV.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
fact, it should be one of the key things at the top of the CV that I was talking about earlier, you know, LinkedIn profile.
Hmm.
And it's important that your LinkedIn profile matches your CV. But companies still want to see a CV. They still want a document that they can look at on their screen or very often print off and have on their desk and have in front of them and write notes on it
Hmm.
and write little questions about certain aspects of it that they want to speak to the candidate about. People still really kind of love having that tangible piece of paper.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think weirdly, the CV is something that is pretty much going to stay the same as it always has been, in that it's a document that encapsulates your career, your achievements, your education, your hobbies, your interests. Gives you have to get on a piece of paper something of your personality across. And I think that what will change, the only thing that will change is what I'm talking about, what I harp on about, and what I'm passionate about is the content in the CV and making sure that that is right. Companies, again, everyone's super busy all the time. People do not have time to scour through a CV to try and make it fit the role.
Yeah.
They need to see it leap out of the page at them that this person fits the role. So the CV's got to contain the core information, the key information that we need. It needs to, and I stress this to my candidates, it needs to be tweaked for the position that you're applying for. Too many people, because again, it's easy, have one CV
Yeah.
and they send that to every different type of job that they're applying for and hope that somehow whoever's reading it will read through it and go, oh, it doesn't exactly say that, but maybe they're okay. it needs to say it exactly. You need to look at the keywords and the key requirements of a position, of a job spec, of a job advert, whatever you're looking at. And you need to make sure you've tweaked the CV so that it honestly, don't just tweak it and make it up. You've got to
Right.
have the knowledge and the skills to back it up, but you tweak it so that you are highlighting the match between what's required and what you can offer, because then it makes it much more easy for the hiring manager, the HR manager, the acquisition team, the recruiter, whoever's looking at that CV first needs to look at it and needs to leap out at them and say, yes, this fits this job.
Right.
So it's not going to change in essence the CV, but the content is absolutely king and it's going to become increasingly vital.
Yeah, for time management. Right. So, what do you think most business owners are getting wrong when they're trying to address these specific problems?
When you say business owners, are you referring to recruitment business owners or hiring managers?
Recruitment business owners.
Okay. I think the mistake that some recruitment businesses make are that they treat the candidate as a commodity. So they see a CV as it's the be all and end all. Okay, this person either is fits or it doesn't, move on type of
Hmm.
approach. The danger of that approach is, because I see it as a re education of candidates, you need to read between the lines as a recruiter. If you're going to be a good recruiter, you need to read between the lines. You need to be able to look at a CV that may not be perfect and say, there's enough in this that gives me interest in this person. I need to speak to them. I need to help them. I need to correct and improve their CV to present them in a much better light than it currently does. And a lot of recruitment owners and businesses, particularly those, again, larger businesses, larger recruitment businesses, they put so much pressure on their recruiters in terms of hitting targets. You know, you've got to have X number of CVs sent out every week to clients. You know, you've got to have X number of interviews happening every week. You've got to target, 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 target. So the recruiter in that situation is not is often not afforded the time to read between the lines.
Right.
They look at a CV, they glance at it, literally spend seconds on it. And if it doesn't leap out at them as being right, it's gone. They've moved on to the next one. And so the mistake they make is that they are missing the diamonds in the rough. There's good people in there. The job of a proper recruiter is to find them and then to polish that diamond and present it to the client in its highly polished, perfect state.
Hmm.
So that's a mistake a lot are making. They're not looking for
Okay.
that diamond in the rough.
Okay, got it. So, if you could rebuild your tech stack from scratch today, what would you do differently?
I'm not sure I would do anything differently, to be quite honest. I think that, because I came from an IT background myself, I've always been passionate about technology. I've always been very good at I've been used many, many times by companies to beta test products, recruitment software. I can break things, I can spot problems for them very quickly. So I'm very useful in that way. So, in terms of when I do an evaluation of something, of a product for my tech stack, I'm very good at being able to drill down into it, not just accept the salesman's pitch,
Hmm.
but say, no, just show me that bit again. What happens if I do this and I click here and I want that to happen? And, I'm able to dig into that sort of thing really quickly when I understand that when I get a system on board, it takes time to set it up and that's necessary. So for me, I don't think I'd do anything different. No, I think my approach is correct in bringing on board and using properly the tech that we do.
That's perfect then. So, what advice would you give to business owners who want to stay ahead of these changes?
I think learning is vitally important. I think a lot of people, the older you get, fall into the trap of thinking, I know it all. I've been around for donkey's years. I don't need to go on a webinar. I don't need to read. I just know what's what. And I think as soon as you make that kind of mental thought, allow that mental thought to come in, then you're on the way down. Things are changing so quickly. You've got to
Right.
keep abreast of what's going on. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of thinking, no, I've been around, I've been doing this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. There's nothing I can learn. And that couldn't be further from the truth, particularly now, because so much is changing so quickly all the time. Now is even more important than ever that you take time out of your busy schedule. And I know it's difficult. We've only all got the same amount of hours in a day,
Right.
but you take time to learn. And there is so much information available. There's lots of free webinars around which you can avail yourself of and learn the pros and the cons of the latest technology and latest approaches. But also, you can join recruitment networks. We've got a fantastic network in the UK called Team. The Team network is a brilliant network of independent recruitment businesses that help support each other with guidance and advice and experience. And Team puts on a huge amount of webinars that lots of wonderful software providers and recruitment trainers give of their time for free for the benefit of the recruitment members.
Yeah.
And there are other networks like that in the UK, and then there's a global network called MPA Worldwide, which I'm also a member of, which kind of does what Team does, but on a global basis, not just the UK. Put yourself into that sort of a network. So you're surrounding yourself with similar peers that you can learn from. So I think that never stop learning is vitally important.
Okay, got it. So, as we wrap up, what's next for Park Lane Recruitment? Any exciting developments on the horizon?
Yeah, we are growing in the States. We have a small team there at the moment. I've got colleagues working with me that are in Canada as well as California and Texas and New York City. And that's going really well. We're building a nice team there working for clients across the whole of the States. And there is so much work there that I'm looking to expand that team into putting people in other key locations around the States. And equally, I have someone working for me who's based in Spain as well. And she's looking after a lot of our European work, particularly our defense related contract work that we do in mainland Europe. And I'm really keen to expand there with other associates. And then ultimately, the Middle East. We do nothing in the Middle East at all at the moment, and that is a big market as well. So, yeah, I'm looking to grow internationally. I think the future definitely is international.
Okay, interesting, interesting this. So, for listeners who want to learn more or potentially work with Park Lane Recruitment, what's the best way to get in touch?
A number of ways. Drop me an email, tim@plr.ltd. Simple as that. Um, Go on LinkedIn. You'll find me on there. My contact details are up front and center on my LinkedIn profile. That's another bone of contention I have. The amount of people that have a LinkedIn profile that don't have contact information on there is ridiculous. You have to send them a message and hope they read it and then they get back to you. If you want to be contacted by people, put your contact details on there. So look me up on LinkedIn.
Right, perfect. So, thank you for sharing these insights about you, about your company, about the whole story. And thank you for being here. Thank you for this amazing and interesting podcast session.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed our discussion.
Perfect. So, see you at next episode.
Absolutely. Bye for
Bye.
now.